from one Levels War video to the next. I can't help it, guys. I thought I got it all on my system. I'm so sorry. So, the Levels War movie, The First Kiss That Never Ends, recently premiered, and I was able to watch it in theaters. I knew it was going to reignite my obsession with Levels War, and yeah, it did exactly that. And I'm now rereading the manga for where the movie ends because I just can't help myself. For today, I want to talk about my impressions of the movie as someone who's read the manga, but I'm only going to give spoilers for the movie itself, so all you anime onlys can rest easy. This is going to be a pretty small video, so let's get straight into it. When I first heard about this movie, I thought it would go over the entirety of what happens during winter break for the four main characters. I assumed this because the poster of the movie made it look like that, but this thing is purely the Kaguya and Miyuki show. The movie adapts chapters 138 to 151, which is an arc purely about the aftermath of the school festival, and the storyline where Kaguya and Miyuki truly become a couple. This was a storyline that I enjoyed when I first read it, but experiencing it through the movie again definitely made me appreciate it more. I always did see it as the part where my love for this series skyrocketed, as Kaguya and Miyuki finally becoming a couple made things even more interesting. The whole point of this arc is that these two need to drop their facades and accept it's okay for them to be themselves with each other. The funny misunderstandings are still gonna happen, but the romance between the two gains such a sincere honesty now that they don't gotta try so hard. You don't really see much of it here until the end, but the whole point of this movie is finally getting them to that point, and what's definitely one of the more dramatic arcs the two ever go through. It's still Love is War, you know, there's still humor, but this is definitely a more serious part of the manga that's getting adapted, and it signifies Love is War's greater focus into character turmoil that I really enjoy. The story is still hilarious throughout, but the character writing only gets stronger alongside it. Also, I remembered most of the jokes from the manga, but completely forgot about the handcuff joke. And when we got there, I was like, oh wow, I forgot about this, oh my god. Kaguya's shift into Ice Kaguya allows us to see more of how she was before meeting Miyuki. And this part of the story goes even harder into that one gag in season 2 of her mind being made up with different versions of herself. It's interesting enough to watch unfold, as this is a version of Kaguya that isn't bothering with the mind games she and Miyuki usually play. She wants him to make a move and she has never been so aggressive about it. Meanwhile, Miyuki is just doing his best to figure out what exactly he should even be doing. Some segments make some nice callbacks to chapters much earlier in the series, such as the whole lunchbox chapter, and the chapter where Kaguya talks to Kashiwagi and Miyuki talks to Ishigami, except replace him with Maki. You know what, this works just fine because Maki's screen time is always a good thing because she is still one of the best characters, and that bit of her feeling betrayed by Miyuki and running to Ishigami cracked me up. I think this one part of the story is just on the verge of going on for too long. The perfume chapter was the most unnecessary part despite how well animated it is in the movie. Things start to pick back up once Miyuki's taken to the hospital and Kaguya goes through some self-reflection. If there's one thing these two have in common, it's that they really resent their true selves, but that does add to their romance, as they really do love the other person for who they really are. Something I do gotta give props to the movie for is its lighting. The choice of colors in a number of scenes really surprised me with how good they looked, and the cinematography in certain scenes definitely drive home the more dramatic nature of this arc. The moment Kaguya and Miyuki kiss in this movie is adapted exactly as I wanted it to be. No fanfare, no bombastic music or loud sound, just the quietness of the two sharing a mundane normal kiss. The kiss at the end of season 3 was hype-inducing, but this is the real moments I fell in love with this couple. I always thought the two were an entertaining ship before this point, but this is when it all really clicked for me. This all makes for a great story fitting for a movie, but to get personal for a bit, I really wish this movie adapted my actual favorite part of what happens on Christmas Eve, and of course it involves my goat. I know everything involving Ishigami and Ino's side of the story was told in a flashback after this point in the manga, but I thought it would have been interesting if they cut between these two stories like A and B plots. I get why the manga didn't do this, as it would be too clunky in that format, but for a movie that still includes the beginning threads to that whole plot, I think including both stories, even if it increased the runtime, would have been more ideal for me. It just ends up a bit unfulfilling when all the setup for this arc is still in the movie, and there's even allusions to what went down that night, but there's no real payoff for all that in this film. I know this may not matter too much for some people, since this series was always about Kaguya and Miyuki from the start, but what I love about Love is War is how its storytelling evolves from a bunch of gags involving the romance of these two, into this web of relationships, both platonic and romantic, and how they all interact with each other in both humorous and emotional ways. Stuff like Kaguya and Ishigami's relationship, going from a joke of how he's terrified of her, into this genuine friendship, where someone who's been taught to succeed their whole life mentors someone who believes they're destined to fail, or like Hayasuka, going from a fun character for Kaguya to bounce off of, into a person with her own desires and struggles unique from every other character, to even Honestly, I forgot what my point even was. I just got carried away with talking about the series again. Oops. Anyways, tangents aside, this movie is still very good and it reinvigorated my love for Love is War, and that's all I can really ask for. It did get me hyped as heck for season 4, and this is when we're gonna start seeing material that I love a lot. My big hope is that we get the school trip adapted because that's one of my favorite storylines in the whole series. I don't know how feasible that'll be, but I think it would be great if if it was, the last arc of the season. I'm just saying, come on. But that's all stuff I can geek out about when season 4 is actually here, so until then, bye I guess. Oh, by the way, all you anime only watchers that have just seen the movie can always join me and read the manga, so that way you can truly understand peak